Today's video is about how to structure hair loss treatment for long-lasting results. And here is the results I was able to achieve. So this is a result here I had back in 2008 and results I was able to achieve in 2010. And here is the results of me back in 2013, and you can see how nice I was able to recover my hair in 2015. And to this day I still have my hair, so I have been able to achieve long-lasting results with full stop hair. But if you read forums, for example, or search on internet, most forums on internet search results will tell the treatment starts to lose its effectiveness after 2 to 3 years. So how it comes that it does lose effectiveness, but I still have been able to keep my full stop here. In this video, I'm going to go into details and break it down for you so you understand on how you can structure your treatment and get results that actually lasts. And for you guys who are new to the channel, my name is Alex, and I'm previously hair loss sufferer who's able to regrow back my own hair, and I'm also certified trichologist. So today's video is about how to basically structure the treatment, how to structure the approach so you can get awesome results. And when it comes to the treatment, there is a couple of things we need to understand. And one of the most important parts of the treatment is that you don't want to just rely on the treatment itself. Like core treatment is very important, but it is also important to understand that there is so many other variables that can affect effectiveness, but also that can affect the results that you can gain from the treatment, right? So this is a very important part. Second one that is important is that you don't want to make treatment more and more complex, right? Because that will just make it harder to stick to it, it can start to interfere with each other, right? Different components. And third factor is that you don't need to add different elements or different treatments that addresses the same problem. And I will talk more about it later on in this video as well. And when it comes to hair itself, like what we need to understand is that there are different timelines, different cases, right? So for example, sometimes you would see a YouTube video, for example, or get a search results that someone have been able to gain back a full head of hair in 6 months, and then you read someone who has been doing hair loss treatment for 2 years and still don't see any results, right? So that basically there are different cases, different timelines. Some would say it is because he is responding much better to the treatment, but from my experience there is so many other things that can play in and affect the treatment's effectiveness and also the timeline. So what we need to understand, and this is very important, is that there is 3 different phases of hair recovery. So what I mean by it is that there is a reactivation phase, and then there is a grow phase, and then there is a maintenance phase. And most difficult one is reactivation phase, like reactivating the follicles itself. It is something that takes a lot of time, a lot of efforts, and you need to do basically a lot of things if you want to reactivate the follicles that has been inactive for a while, right? So this is something that takes much more efforts. Grow phase itself is not necessarily that hard if you are doing it correctly with the correct growth stimulant. If you are not having any online problems, then grow phase is a simple moving forward phase. You basically add a growth stimulant to the treatment and you grow back here. And then we have a third phase that is maintenance. So for example, someone who has been able to reactivate the follicles, been able to grow them, then at some point he will need to start to maintain that regrow, right? And that's a phase that what happens that it doesn't require much efforts, but what can often happen is that one starts to slack on that phase, one starts to, for example, not do topical applications, for example, or skip, for example, taking medication, or skip blocking DHT, for example, or starts to slack on diet, for example, or on the lifestyle, or gets unhealthy habits that could affect the hair, for example. And then what happens is that he would start to slowly lose gains, right? And it basically happens that one starts to come more shedding, for example, more thinning, and maybe 20-30% of the hair fall out before one actually panics and starts to do something about it. And usually what happens is one assumes the treatment is not working, and then starts to make it more aggressive, right? Starts to have a more aggressive approach to the treatment. And this, of course, is a mistake, because you just need to address, for example, the problem why the hair are starting to shed out, or why the hair are thinning again. So to give you an example, so for example, someone who has been balding for 5 years, maybe even 10 years, he has to reactivate the follicles, right? So it will take much more efforts, like he has to do things to increase circulation, increase oxygen flow to follicles, but also make sure that there is multiple source protein, for example, synchronization of protein, for example, right nutritional factors, right? So basically one has to do a lot more for example, to someone who has hairs that has fallen out just recently, let's say 6 months ago, let's say because of the stress or because of nutritional factor, and then one basically finds it out and starts to address this problem with the treatment, and then one can see results very fast, right? Because one has just had a recent hair loss, and the follicles don't have to be reactivated, they just have to be grown back again. That some people, for example, see results of growth after a very short time frame, but then some have to do a treatment for, let's say, 10 weeks, even 16 weeks before they start to notice small values here that are growing out, right? Because when one has to reactivate the follicles, it takes much more time, much more efforts to actually see results from the treatment. Another thing is that I want to talk about is combining the elements or treatments that actually make sense. Right, so basically what I mean by it is that, for example, let's say someone has androgenic alopecia. To it would be, for example, a DHT blocker. It would be, for example, a growth stimulant if the hair loss has been progressing for a while. And if there is, for example, dandruff or some fungal problems, you would need either antifungal shampoo or anti-dandruff shampoo to address this issue. And that is a treatment that would make sense. Right, so basically one would have, let's say, salmeterol for DHT blocker or finasteride for DHT blocker, then growth stimulant, minoxidil, for example, and then ketoconazole shampoo for as the antifungal, or zinc shampoo if it's anti-dandruff. That is a treatment that makes sense to do. But if, for example, one adds many components that do the same task, the same thing. Let's say, for example, having several different DHT blockers. Let's say taking, let's say, salmeterol and finasteride to block DHT. Like, it's not necessary. Like, either select one of them if your hair loss is just recent, do the most potent one. I sometimes would take, for example, natural herbs that indirectly blocks DHT. For example, I would take nettles in my supplementation from time to time, but it is not because I block DHT with it, but it is of benefits that I would get from nettles itself. So I do take finasteride, but additionally I would take nettles, that is a DHT blocker as well, but I take it more because of additional factors such as nettles has a high content of minerals, for example. It has a silica, for example, like that's good for the hair, and that's the reason why I take it. Right? The same, for example, with a green tea. Right? Green tea is also seen as a DHT blocker, but the reason I take drink green tea is because additionally it has also a lot of antioxidants in it, right? So that's kind of reason why I would possibly do it, but it's not mainly because of blocking DHT, because I already address it by finasteride. And same is, for example, different growth formulations, right? For example, combining 5% minoxidil with 10% minoxidil, it also kind of doesn't make that much sense, right? Unless there is specific case, specific structure, maybe one does minoxidil formulation with additional DHT blockers, and then one does 5% formulation with microneedling. Like, it can in some context make sense, but it has to be structured well. Or, for example, having a minoxidil and rosemary oil, right? So one should basically select one approach and don't mix them together. There is no point if one is applying minoxidil, especially one is a good responder to it. Questions that I get quite often is about how much hair one can recover from the hair loss treatment. And my response to it, it depends. It depends on the timeline, how long hair have been falling out. It depends on the treatment, right? What kind of treatment one is doing. It depends on underlying problems, how well one is managing them, like what was the cause of the hair loss. And of course, it depends on optimization and also later on the maintenance. Multiple factors that can affect how much hair one can recover. But as you can see in my case, for example, I was able to recover a lot of my hairs that had fallen out, right? So here are a couple of pictures of me with full slow hair when I had my peak results, and it doesn't mean that I have lost so much ground from it, but remember that I'm in my 30s now, so it is a bit different compared to someone who just starts the treatment and doesn't have so many underlying problems I was having, right? But basically one can recover a decent amount of the hair if one does it correctly, if one has a good structure for the treatment, if one is actually focusing on addressing this problem, and also optimize lifestyle for hair recovery. Loss is just recent, for example, and one does everything correctly by addressing the underlying factors and basically having a potent growth stimulant. So those are things I want to share with you guys in today's video, and for you guys who need more help, more guidance, you can book a session below this video. There's a link for it. Let's discover what is holding you back and what you can do to recover your hair once and for all. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and see you next one.